Well, while I was away over the weekend, it appears that AOC managed to unite the left, progressives, socialists alike, but not in the way that I'm sure that she would have hoped for. A lot happened over the past couple of days, and this all revolves around the vote that AOC made for cutting funding against Israel. This is the bill that Marjorie Taylor Greene brought forward. Interesting, her of all people, but she brought this bill forward to cut funding for Israel, and AOC voted against it. Her comrades, Rashida Tlaib, Summer Lee, and Ilhan Omar voted for this bill. You can see this here yourself, ladies and gentlemen. This has a lot of people up in arms. Shout out to Grace Chong here. The House just voted on an amendment to cut funding for Israeli cooperative programs. It failed 6 to 422. Only 6 voted yes, a strange mix. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Thomas Massey, Al Green, Summer Lee, Omar, and Tlaib, but not AOC. And because of this vote, because she voted against it, this actually brought her criticism from progressives and socialists, and even some people who don't even fit into either one of those categories, but they were like, what the hell are you doing? And you can see that here yourself. I never thought I'd see all these people come together. Never thought I'd see that, but it did happen. Now, before we get to that, I want to show you her response to this vote. Marjorie Taylor Greene's amendment does nothing to cut off offensive aid to Israel, nor end the flow of U.S. munitions being used in Gaza. Of course, I voted against it. What it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities while allowing the actual bombs killing Palestinians to continue. I have long stated that I do not believe that adding to the death count of innocent victims to this war is constructive to its end. That is a simple and clear difference of opinion that has long been established. I remain focused on cutting the flow of U.S. munitions that are being used to perpetuate the genocide in Gaza. Okie dokie. She received a lot of shit for this one. A lot for this response as well. It's not just people who were angered that she didn't vote for it. It was also people that were angered by her response. And that also includes DSA, which we'll get to them as well. So first and foremost here, why does AOC want to protect the Iron Dome? She says it right here. What it does do is cut off defensive Iron Dome capacities. Why does AOC want to protect the Iron Dome? Marjorie Taylor Greene's bill may not be perfect, but why does AOC want to protect the Iron Dome? And this isn't the first time. Let me break this down for you and make it very clear here. I am not one of those people that's progressive except for Palestine. I'm not even a progressive. I'm to the left of the progressives. But the Iron Dome is a tool that enables Israel to do what they're doing to the Palestinian people. It enables Israel to bomb Syria, as they've started doing again recently. It enables Israel to bomb a Catholic church, which, as you see now, they're starting to attack Christians. Like I told you, this supremacy has no bounds. It enables Israel to attack Iran, to attack Lebanon, and not receive any accountability afterwards. This idea that Israel should be enclosed, that it should be protected, where they can throw their stones and then hide their hands and nobody can respond to them, is part of the reason why Israel does what it does to begin with. Now, of course, there's the whole history of Zionism, but if you know that you have a shield that is protecting you, you're probably more likely to drop some more bombs. You're probably more likely to feel emboldened to do what you're doing to the other countries and the other people around you. This goes exactly against DSA principles. It is not the right thing to do. According to DSA policy, which she's a part of, it is not the right thing to do to support the Iron Dome. So why is AOC protecting the Iron Dome? People need to start asking themselves, who exactly is AOC to begin with? And the reason why I get so frustrated with her in particular is because AOC gave people a lot of hope. A lot of people believed in AOC. I was one of them. A lot of people canvassed and phone banked for AOC. And when she won, a lot of us kind of saw her as a hero. And that's part of the problem. This brings me back to the real heroes concept. There are no real heroes in politics. The heroes are you and your community, the person that you see in the mirror, the people who are actually out there helping the people, not the politicians. And I think this is where a lot of the anger and the frustration and disappointment comes from, because a lot of us, myself included, we looked at her as like, oh, wow, she's going to be a hero. She won. She got in there. She was protesting at Nancy Pelosi's office. We're like, hell yeah, that's what's supposed to happen. The whole idea of Justice Democrats was supposed to be like this left tea party within the Democratic Party. They were supposed to push back against Dem establishment and fight back against them. They were supposed to fight back against power. But what we have seen over time is AOC in particular has decided that she wants to be a part of that power. She wants to capitulate to Democrat leadership instead of fighting back against it. And that's what this is really about. She is looking out for her career. Now, when I say everybody came together, I am not joking. You can see this for yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to DYLY. The entire spectrum of Twitter left jumped her ass. And just check this out. These are not all people who are cool with each other. You have Sock Done Left, SDL, AOC, this view is wrong, Mike from PA, even Kyle Kalinske said this is pathetic. Polling USA shouldn't be providing offensive or defensive munitions to Israel. Again, this is not something that has to be explained to AOC. She knows this. Being a part of DSA, this is very clear. Just as clear as day to support BDS. We'll look on. Again, not all these people roll together. You got Joey Reck, Stats for Lefties, Haas. Of course, you voted against it. You're a useless coward without any principles. Of course, my comrade Nick from RBN. Bernie Sanders and AOC are liberal Zionist scum, reject liberal Zionism, and embrace Palestinian liberation. Don't forget about Z Squirrel. There's no such thing as defensive military aid when you give Israel the military infrastructure that ensures it can do its genocide and launch its wars against Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Syria with full impunity. You are directly, intentionally funding and arming the genocide. Like all of these people came together. Barbarism critic, why do Nazis deserve my money for defense? Hassan, a different Hassan here, being a Zionist politician for free is insane. All these people came together. Of course, the Palestinian News Network. And some of us who don't even communicate with each other in that way, are not friends, or not comrades, and all those types of jazz. Ronnie Yakalik said this: I still cannot believe this. The Iron Dome is not defensive. It is part of the infrastructure of genocide, shielding Israelis from the consequences of their relentless destruction of everyone around them. AOC is a smart person. I believe she understands that, meaning her actions here are political opportunism. Pathetic, sad, disappointing, all of it. But also, who does she think her base is? Who is she trying to please with this? And so I'll answer Rania's question here. She's trying to please Democrat establishment. We're going to do a little bit of a deep dive here. I usually do deep dives during live streams, but I feel like I got to do this. I was in the mountains over the weekend, and so I'm like, no, we need to go ahead and cover this and nip this in the bud, because I have quite a bit to say here. Who exactly is AOC? We were told she was a bartender. We were told she grew up in the Bronx. And you come to find out, she actually had a startup at one point. She wasn't just a bartender. She went to school in Westchester County outside of New York City, a very good school. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of those things. Yet for some reason, the bio that was sold to us about AOC was that she was just this working class, person. Her mom cleaned houses. Didn't go on to tell you that her father was the president of the architecture firm that he worked at. These things are important. Now, I say this to be very clear. AOC could have told us all those things that I just told you. Also could have said that she interned for Ted Kennedy. I'm going to get to that in just a second. And she still could have won. So why the need to omit information? Why the need to make it seem as though this was someone who just grew up in the Bronx? They leave out like the fancy school that she went to in Westchester County. Listen, I lived in New York. Westchester County is pretty well to do. And in the moment I realized that she was a student at Boston University, which I worked at Boston University as academic advisor, that's when it started to hit me. Something is off here, because Boston University in particular, when they recruit students from the Bronx, they usually do it from the math and science school from the Bronx. She wasn't at the math and science school. And then I started to realize, oh, wait a minute. She went to school in Westchester. So may have been born in the Bronx, but the reality is she went to school in Westchester. That does actually make a difference there. That explains a lot, because the narrative that was portrayed about AOC was that, oh, she grew up in the Bronx, and the Bronx is the poorest district in New York. This really does matter. One of the poorest districts also in the country. It gives people the perception that someone who grew up in a poor area was able to still make it, was still able to make it out of that area to Boston University and eventually to become Congresswoman, despite the fact she was also a bartender. So it does matter. Now, don't forget last year. Let's go make our way going backwards. 2024, at the Democratic National Convention, she stood on that stage and she told you that they are working tirelessly for a ceasefire, Kamala and Biden. This was immediately debunked by her comrade, Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar said, that is a lie. She knows that they are not doing that. And, there was pushback there from some people who still wanted to praise and worship AOC and believe in her. And then it was under Donald Trump's presidency that it was revealed. Shout out to JB, my comrade from RBN. Remember when AOC lied and said that Biden regime was working tirelessly for a ceasefire? When it came out, that they weren't at all. And I just have to remind everybody of this. Biden never pressured Israel for a ceasefire, as Israeli officials boast of exploiting U.S. support. That was revealed this year under Trump's presidency. But AOC stood right on that stage and lied to you and told you that they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire, which I would have thought common sense would have kicked in here for some people. If they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire, they wouldn't have been still giving them weapons. That was the big common sense. And I feel like a lot of people didn't pick up on that. She lied to you. No real heroes in politics. Don't forget this. The webinar, the anti-Semitism, anti-Zionist webinar that AOC hosted, this panel that she hosted. Remember when it was announced? Monday, Representative AOC to host live stream on anti-Semitism and the fight for democracy. So that was June 7th, 2024, last year, that was announced. Anti-Semitism and the fight for democracy. Now, she was hosting this panel here with Stacey Burdett, who was the former vice president for government relations, advocacy, and community engagement in the ADL. She hosted this along with a member of the ADL, the same ADL that tried to silence TikTokers for telling the truth about the history of Israel and the creation of Israel. Oh, yes, sir. That's right. These are the people that she collaborated with for that panel. Also, Amy Spittelnick, who was the CEO of the Jewish Council of Public Affairs and the former executive director of Integrity First for America. So just see this for yourself in case you forgot. This is just a reminder. This was that webinar.
Conversation today, and welcome. I'm incredibly excited for us to be doing this. In a minute, we're going to be hearing from two of the foremost experts from two of some of the most foremost experts in the country in fighting anti-Semitism in America. And before we get to that panel, though, I want to talk a little bit about why we're doing this, and most importantly, why we're doing it now. Anti-Semitism, hate, and violence against Jews because of their identity is real and it is dangerous. It is also important to say here in this moment and during that conversation that criticism of the Israeli government is not inherently anti-Semitic. And
pause. Do you see the trick that is being played here? She does the same thing that Bernie Sanders does. It is okay to criticize the government. What she alludes to, and I saw the webinar, what she alludes to here is that once you get to the point where you're criticizing Israel, the creation of Israel, the existence of Israel, then it's problematic. No, it is not. Everyone, I am trying to sound an alarm here. AOC has taken what it means to be a socialist and she has pulled it to the right. That is very problematic. I'll get into more detail about that. But you can criticize the state of Israel. You can criticize Zionism. When you are criticizing Zionism, Zionism existed before the Israeli government. So what you have to understand is that the very belief and the practice of Zionism in itself is supremacy, and it is racist, and it is ethnic cleansing. But AOC is telling you just criticize the government. That is the same thing that Bernie Sanders is doing. The problem with that is this is not just Netanyahu. This is not just the Likud party. It is Zionism in its creation. It is Zionism that made them push and kick Palestinian people off of the land into open air prisons such as Gaza. It is Zionism that makes the Israeli people, Israeli settlers, go into the West Bank, take their homes, beat them, burn their houses, burn their land. It is Zionism. That is not just Benjamin Netanyahu. Benjamin Netanyahu was not in power 1946 during the Nakba. That was Zionism that perpetrated that type of violence and that type of supremacy. She is watering it down here. Now, listen to what she says here. Let's bring it back just a little bit because see, she's careful about how she does this.
Anti-Semitic. And criticism of Zionism is not automatically anti-Semitic.
Keyword automatically. Do you see this? Automatically. This is the little dance that she is doing. She has been doing this. And every time I called it out, I was like, people were attacking. Every time I called this out, AOC stands were mad at me or coming after me. And many like me who were doing the same thing. We tried to tell you, what has it been, 3-4 years now? The moment she voted president for the Iron Dome, years ago, we tried to tell you what AOC was doing and why it was problematic. And instead of holding AOC accountable, people decided to blame commentators that were seeing through her BS. That is why you have the disappointment that you have today. Let's continue.
That being true does not mean that we should not recognize when criticism and when that criticism crosses a line into real harms against our Jewish community. Conversation
so
today.
You see this? You see this? This was this webinar that a lot of us were up in arms about. We're like, what the hell is she doing? And I honestly believe that's the reason why AIPAC didn't primary challenge her. You see Corey and Jamal Bowman, they got them up out of there. I guess they couldn't really do it to Rashida Tlaib because it looked kind of suspect if you do it to the only Palestinian in Congress. Think about that for a second. Ilhan Omar, the previous cycle, almost lost her primary. So this has been and I think what people need to see when I say, who is this woman? Who is AOC? This is what I'm talking about. How many people knew about this, huh? Because I didn't. This was recently brought to my attention. 2 Israeli startup entrepreneurs played roles in the rise of AOC. Did everybody know about this? This article is from 2020. You see what I mean? Now let's go on. Let's get to the part about her in particular. We'll make this a little bit bigger because I think people need to see who she really is. But in the case of AOC in particular, Tobin is mistaken. Not all Israelis are alike. In fact, it has fallen largely under the radar that during part of the period between her graduation from Boston University in 2011 and her election to Congress in 2018, she held 2 positions in which she worked under the auspices of 2 Israelis. How many people knew this? AOC official House of Representatives biography does not mention these 2 positions, focusing instead on a post-college position she held as an educational director with the National Hispanic Institute and on stints as a bartender and a waitress. Also, the acclaimed 2019 Netflix documentary Bringing Down the House, which follows AOC during her successful June 2018 primary bid in New York 14th District, shows her working as a bartender. They call it working class for a reason, she said in the documentary, as she hauled buckets of ice and mixed drinks because you are working nonstop. How many of you remember watching that documentary? Yeah, they showed her working as a bartender. They didn't say anything to you about her working under those startups. Don't you think that was important to know? So it goes on to say here, but elsewhere on the internet, there are traces of AOC's less publicized gigs in which 2 Israeli American figure, Joe Rabi and Chin Yerushalmi, men associated more with the world of venture capital and startups than with the working class. It is under the aegis of these men that AOC prepared curricula teaching entrepreneurial and self-presentation skills to ambitious young college students and graduates in the Bronx. These skills, which she helped teach to others, may have been instrumental in her own political rise. AOC spokesperson Lauren Hitt told the Times of Israel that the names Chinny and Joe are not ringing a bell with us over here. It may be a fairly tenuous connection. Public sources, however, indicate that Yerushalmi was AOC's boss at a company called Gage Strategies, while Rabi vetted candidates for the Sunshine Bronx business incubator that she applied and was admitted to. AOC herself publicly associated with both these employment experiences over a period of 5 years prior to her own election to Congress. So I think that's important information for people to know. And it could also explain why someone who doesn't take any money from AIPAC or from Kufi is willing to still say that we have to protect the Iron Dome, is willing to host a webinar conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. These are things that people really need to ask themselves. Now, there's a little bit more here. It goes on to say an incubator and a book publishing company, a biography for September 21, 2013. Talk AOC gave at a biography talk AOC gave at Boston University, her alma mater, describes her as the founder of Brook Avenue Press, a social enterprise dedicated to providing relevant educational products to children and parents in public areas. Again, here's the screenshot here. Alexandria founded Brook Avenue Press. Again, why was this information omitted from her bio? I think she still would have won. The very facade of AOC, it was fake. It's all fake. She's not who she said she was. And she could have said all of these things, and I think she still would have won. She could have given her full bio. This startup information is important instead of giving this narrative that, yeah, I just came out of the Bronx and I'm working as a bartender and now I'm running for Congress. This is important. It does matter. It shows you that she was already rubbing elbows with people who were in powerful positions. She is also described on the same website as the lead educational strategist at Gage Inc. So why leave this information out? Why? I will be sure to link this article so that you guys can read this on your own as well. The point is, she was already working with two Israelis. That information nobody knows about. Now, Zineb Day, who had worked with Brand New Congress, which later became Justice Democrats, she replied to this because it was Max Blumenthal who shared this information on Twitter. He said AOC's career was launched by two Israeli venture capitalists. The origin story is left out of her bio, but suggests an Obama-esque trajectory towards national power. As with Obama, the signs of sellout were always there. And so Zineb did respond. I was specifically never told this when crafting her bio for her first run. And Zineb has been on my show and she's talked about this before, nor her time interning for Kennedy. Now I feel like that was intentional. So much was misrepresented and left hidden from me and others to paint her more as the struggling working class. Kudos to Zineb there because she's been very honest about her experience in all of this. So again, the disappointment is coming, I think, because a lot of people kind of saw her as a hero. And there are no real heroes. And I broke this down so well because I really want people to understand this and what this really means. A few years ago, AOC voted present on the Iron Dome funding and then cried in front of Pelosi. I want people to realize the excuses people gave her led to the moment you have now, where she voted to protect it once again. This is not an error. This is a career move. Here's the screenshot I shared here. Just a reminder for people. AOC apologized for her present vote on Iron Dome funding. Does everybody remember this? If you may have forgotten, here was that GIF here. Remember this moment? That was when she voted present on the Iron Dome funding. Okay. I told you then I thought it was an act. And I got attacked by a lot of people. A lot of people don't understand. Some of the people who are calling out her BS now, those of us who were calling this out years ago about her votes, we were ridiculed. We were smeared. We were told never talk to those people, never engage with those people because we saw what she was doing. We were telling you the truth. So I want to break this down for you. AOC is a con artist. This is how I see it. Progressives and socialists need to stop falling for her tricks. Protecting the Iron Dome allows Israel to do what they are doing now, killing and starving Palestinians with no accountability. Even DSA is calling her out, and they are. And I will show you that here. This was the statement from DSA, July 19th, 2025. Let's get to the part about AOC. DSA stand in unwavering solidarity with the Palestinian people in their ongoing struggle for liberation and against the U.S.-backed Israeli genocide in Gaza. This means opposing any and all funding to Israel as it continues its genocide, including a full arms embargo. An arms embargo means keeping all arms out of the hands of the genocidal military. No exceptions. This is why we oppose Representative AOC's vote against an amendment that would have blocked $500 million in funding for the Israeli military's Iron Dome program. While the Congresswoman voted against the defense appropriations bill itself, voting against funding for the imperialist military industrial complex and the Israeli genocide, we were further deeply disappointed by her clarifying statement on her position on the Iron Dome. That's the DSA statement. AOC knows this goes against DSA policies. Now, let's go back to my thread here. AOC wasn't challenged by AIPAC because she bent the knee and hosted a webinar conflating anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. Don't forget the lies she told at the DNC that Kamala was working tirelessly for a ceasefire. This woman is a con artist. She has moved socialism to the right. The problem with AOC is that she ran on policies that will help working people under the socialist banner, but she legislates like a neoliberal. Socialists will not thrive under the Democratic Party, and this part cannot be said enough. This is why I really do believe the Democratic Socialists of America, I feel like that needs to be a separate political party. Now, there are many that disagree with me on that. Whatever. How's it working out? Yes, you have Zohran Mamdani who won the primary. You also got, as I covered the other day, Bernie Sanders telling Zohran to tone it down on the Israel rhetoric. This is the problem with trying to accomplish this through that party. You're either going to capitulate and go along with dim leadership, or they're going to find a way to get you out of that seat and get someone in that seat that they want. Let's continue on here. I said, don't forget AOC was an intern for Ted Kennedy. Yet she told all of you she didn't care if she was a one-term Congress member. Who interns for Ted Kennedy with no political career ambitions? Think about it. Yeah, think about that for a second. First of all, it's not easy to get internships for politicians. It's not. It's you and a lot of other applications that are coming through. Two, remember, I live here in the Boston area, Massachusetts. Ted Kennedy is someone that was not only very popular and sometimes controversial, but Ted Kennedy also not someone that is easy for you to get an internship with. So when she went on to these shows when she was running in 2018 and she said she doesn't care if she was a one-term congressperson, that was a lie. No one signs up and says, I want to try to intern for Ted Kennedy without having political career ambitions. Put two and two together, folks. That doesn't make any damn sense. Why would you go through all that if you're just like, yeah, if I'm just one-term person, that's totally fine. You were not planning on being a one-term person. When you decided to apply for an internship with Ted Kennedy, you were looking for a political career. That's what that is really about. And last but not least, why did AOC lie about her background? She could have been honest and still won. Unfortunately, she fooled a lot of people, including me. And now she's trying to trick you into believing her vote is okay. I want to be very clear about this. I am not above criticism. I too fell for it. I fell for all of this. I fell for AOC saying she was going to bring the ruckus. I fell for all of that. So I'm not here, lecturing you to make you feel as though I knew all along. And I didn't. I fell for it too. And what people have to really understand is that the way that you are going to fight against power is by building dual power systems. You are not going to take down power and fight back against power by joining the power. This whole let me work from in the inside and take them down. Most of the time, what happens is those people end up going along to get along so that they can continue their rise of power. They get a little bit of the taste of the ice cream and they realize they want more of that themselves. Very few actually stick to that approach and continue to try to take things down. The ones who have tried to do that have been removed. Dennis Kucinich, Cynthia McKinney, Jamal Bowman. And Jamal was even more in a timid way. It's not like he was like, I'm going to tear everybody down. They got rid of him. They got rid of Cori Bush, even though she agreed to go along with some things. But you notice that they did AIPAC did not primary AOC. Like I said, she knew just what to say to still have progressives on her side, but also to have the approval of Democrat leadership. That also included Joe Biden. This isn't just about her support for Kamala Harris and saying working tirelessly for a ceasefire. This is also about the fact that AOC was on board for Joe Biden to be president again prior to the announcement of Kamala Harris getting that spot. They were all for it. The one that said, we're going to try to oppose it a bit was Rashida Tlaib, and that was through the uncommitted movement. But for the most part, they were all on board. You cannot, ladies and gentlemen, there is a saying, the master is not going to give you the tools to tear down his house. That is not going to happen. They're not going to let you come in there and tear down their party. They will get rid of you. I think that Blakely summed this up so well. She had really good take here.
I see a lot of voters going, oh, AOC 2028, the Bernie oligarchy tour. AOC is not going to be president in 2028. Allow me to be a downer for a little bit, okay? First of all, we're not going to have a woman president anytime soon. No, we're not. You don't run two women and candidates in a row and have them both lose and then think that you're going to run a third woman candidate. I don't know why you guys think that's going to happen. Second of all, I see a lot of well-meaning progressives be like, she's the future of the party. She's the future of the progressive movement. She's going to be the president in 2020. She's the successor to Bernie. The only way she's a successor to Bernie is in being a disappointment. And who knows, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you'll prove me wrong. But I feel like that you guys in the political media class and politicians are underestimating how people feel about the genocide in Gaza, how people specifically on the left, and I don't just mean the leftists and communists and socialists that don't vote. I'm talking about your rank and file progressives that do vote, that are horrified and disgusted by the genocide in Gaza and how that has changed their perspective. Have you seen the polling even within the Democratic Party about how they feel about Israel? Calling yourself a progressive and then voting against this amendment this far into the genocide is a disgrace. She keeps talking out of both sides of her mouth and she thinks people aren't going to notice. You're acknowledging it's a genocide, but then you turn around and vote against an amendment to not give the Israeli regime even more fucking money. I know it's for defensive purposes. Cool story. They're not actually defending themselves from shit. The point is, this ain't fucking it. Leaders lead, and this is not leading. This and a lot of the shit she's done over the last couple of years are just the moves of a careerist.
I think that Blakely is spot on, and I want to say something here, ladies and gentlemen. You know, the reason why I was not excited about AOC and Bernie Sanders' oligarchy tour is because I knew that tour was a response to Donald Trump. When they said they were going to take down the billionaires and the oligarchs, they were talking about Donald Trump. Now, Bernie Sanders had to be told this to his face in other interviews as well. Well, the Democratic Party also has those billionaires. He said, yes, and it's true. Remember, they told you to vote for those same people with the same billionaires. Kamala and Donald Trump shared some of the same donors. And this is the problem. And that's what I said. If you're fighting against the oligarchy, if you're fighting against the billionaire class, that is bipartisan. That is not just something that's under the Republican Party. It's not just something under the Democratic Party. So if you're really trying to do that, the way that you do this is by building dual power systems. And this is really where the focus needs to go, in particular on the left, especially for those that if you're a socialist, this is really where the move needs to go. And I say that because here's the thing. I do mutual aid. Those of us at RBN do mutual aid. There's a lot of people out there that are doing good things and helping within the community. A lot of times there's so much focus on what's happening nationally in the political sphere that you miss what's happening right in your own community. You miss the laws that are being made on the books that are going to impact your own city, your own state, because everybody's focused on Congress at some point in time. When I talk about the cost of living report, which I will cover again on Tuesday evening, you will see just how much is happening in your state that you do need to pay attention to because it is affecting you directly. But people have to understand, when you look at power and you look at who's in charge, the billionaire class, these people, again, they're not going to give you the tools to tear them down. They are not going to give you the tools to destroy them. And so I saw right through it. And yet there were people, like some commentators, like Kyle Kulinski said, those of us that were criticizing that, he said, we were your enemy. We're not your enemy. The people who are your enemy are the people who continue to take money from working class people, tricking them into believing they're fighting for like this socialist, revolution, an uprising. And meanwhile, they vote in the opposite direction. Tricking working class people, tricking all these college students into believing that you're going to fight for the Palestinian people, when at best what you really want is a removal of Benjamin Netanyahu. You still want Israel to exist as a supremacist creative state here. You still want them to have the Iron Dome to be able to be protected against the blows that they throw to the kids on the playground and not get any licks back. That's the enemy, is the people who's taken money from working class people and has lied to you for years, and they're voting in such a way that goes against everything that they ran on. That's enemy-like behavior. Those of us who are out there on the ground, who are helping people, who are doing mutual aid, who are feeding people, who are giving kids school supplies, who are doing all of those things, who are trying to help build homes, etc. We are not your enemy. We are trying to help because we know what it's like and we've been there. Unfortunately, the very existence of this idea of a progressive getting into the White House, it really does feed some of the commentators, it feeds their pocket. Unfortunately, they found a way to make a lot of money off of that. But at the end of the day, you still have to hold people accountable. So there are some that agree with that strategy still, and there are some that don't agree with the strategy. But just because we don't agree with the strategy, that doesn't mean that we're your enemy. We're just focused on building dual power. And so I say this, if you want to try something different, if you want to focus on building dual power, attend one of my mutual aid workshops so I can teach you how to do it. I don't expect people to know everything. I don't expect everybody to be where I am. And I'm not even where some other people are. I don't expect everybody to be there. But you got to ask yourself, what's happening here with AOC? And you see this game that's being played right in front of your fucking eyes. How long are you going to go along with that? Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.